amigos de Casa Teatro. Mi nombre es Mildred.
Yo soy Juanma.
Y hoy estamos aquí para hablarles sobre Puerto Rico. Agradecemos la invitación de Mónica y Dorimar para hablar sobre nuestro país. Vamos a hacer una sección nada más, como todos los países hispanohablantes, nuestra cultura e historia es así un poco complicada. Así que vamos a hacer un pedacito, vamos a enfocarnos en los piratas y los corsarios y los contrabandistas, tratando de hacer algo que les llame la atención a los más jovencitos. Así que vamos a cambiar al inglés para que ellos nos puedan seguir y entendernos. Vamos a empezar con un PowerPoint sobre Puerto Rico. Les vamos a ir diciendo. Vamos a abrir. Dale a share. Ok, aquí estamos en Puerto Rico, Isla del Encanto, o la Perla del Caribe. Tiene muchos apodos Puerto Rico, pero creo que el más común es la Isla del Encanto.
En inglés se le decía The Shining Star of the Caribbean.
Yes. Okay, let's look at the map. Puerto Rico, the Caribbean is the smallest island of the bigger Antilles, and the biggest of the smallest, kind of close to Florida.
Florida will be there. Puerto Rico will be there. And this is the Lesser Antilles, and this is the bigger Antilles.
Exactly. And Puerto Rico is tiny. It's 100 miles long and 35 miles wide. So it's very small, but very diverse in every sense of the word. Okay, so empezamos con los Tainos. Los Tainos are indigenous people. They came from Venezuela, from what we know as Venezuela today. They suffered greatly after the conquest, after Columbus stumbled upon Puerto Rico. They were very peaceful. They were not warriors, and of course got a lot of the diseases that the Europeans brought and did not have the antibodies to fight them. So many of them died of disease, like smallpox and things like that, or because they were forced to work and they were not used to that.
The Tainos were one part of the natives that were in that area. The area also was ruled technically by the Caribs, which is there were warriors, and they were very aggressive people. That's why the Caribbean Sea is named after them. They started in around the Bahamas and went all the way down to the shores of Venezuela.
Okay, and then we're going to La Conquista. Cristobal Colón made it to Puerto Rico in 1493, and he called the island San Juan, and then the city Puerto Rico, and then it was switched. Then the capital became San Juan, and the island Puerto Rico. For you young people, we tend to think about this period in history and judge it as it is right now. Everything seems to happen like so fast because we have so many commodities and things that we can use to build and grow and things like that. But at this time, things happen very slowly. Remember that there's a whole ocean between Europe and the Americas. So I mean, everything happened very slowly. So the island was not officially colonized until 1502, when the first governor is declared or started working on the island. His name is Juan Ponce de Leon, and he of course used the our Tainos as slaves. So by 1511, we had almost no Tainos left.
Ponce de Leon is the guy that went to Florida looking for, how the legend says, looking for the fountain of youth. So if He stopped first in Puerto Rico, and then he went up.
Yeah, he's the same guy
to
you've
Florida.
learned about in school. Okay. Los taínos que habitaban el territorio llamaban a la isla Boriquén. That was the Taino name for Puerto Rico. That's why you hear the term Boricuas. We call ourselves Boricuas. That's our indigenous name for the island, and it means la gran tierra de los valientes y noble señor, or the land of the brave and the noble lords. Yeah, lord.
It was basically that the land of great lords was the name that Borinca. So if you see a Puerto Rican called another one Boricua, that's just homie type of calling each other.
Okay, so llegan desde Africa. Then, unfortunately, and this is, you know, all this is a very dark period in our history. But Tainos are, you know, eradicated, and the Spaniards started growing sugar in the 16th century. There was kind of a boom, and you know, the following century it just went kaput, and I'll tell you why. But the conquistadors, they start bringing slaves from West Africa to work and to develop new economies based on sugarcane, then coffee. So those were like the official, I guess, the official crops. There's some other crops that were very important for the development of Puerto Rico, you know, during that time. But those are the ones that we know the most about.
The relationship comes because the Tainos were used to look for gold. When they found out that gold was not there, and most of the Taino population was diminished, then they bring Africans to work the land. Curious thing is that Puerto Rico abolished slavery before the United States.
Yes, and what happened with the sugar cane? It started. The Spaniards started developing that, you know, that crop, but they soon found out that it was very expensive because it requires a lot of machinery and things like that. And by the beginning of the 17th century, the French, the British, and the Dutch have come to the lesser islands, and they were better at growing sugarcane. So that was one factor, and another one was that the Spanish became more interested in Puerto Rico as a military spot, un bastión militar, and a jail also. Okay, corsarios y piratas. Before we go a little bit into these, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why Puerto Rico has been so, other empires were so interested in Puerto Rico, and it's because of the geographical position of Puerto Rico. It's kind of like a gateway between Europe and the Americas, and then North and South America. If you see it, okay, Europe is on this side, and then there's North America and Central and South America. So Puerto Rico is located at a place where it's kind of like a, you know, like a gateway to North and South, between North and South, East, East and West. So it has empires saw the value all the way up to the United States when they took Puerto Rico. The geographical position of the island was very important. And same thing with, let's go back to the pirates and corsairs, I think, and smugglers. Like in most of the Americas, our story has like three, you know, beginning, middle, and end. First is our people against or trying to repel the empires taking over. And then there's the empires fighting each other for these new lands. And then the third chapter is, the colonies trying to repel or become independent. Another thing that in Puerto Rico we're always very aware of is about our mixed heritage. We're very proud and always see and feel our ancestors, our Tainos, the Africans that came to work as slaves, and
European.
the Europeans, exactly, Tainos, Europeans, and Africans. And of course, I mean, you see those influences in everything, in the food, in the music, the way we speak, the way we stand. You see it everywhere. There's another element that we tend to forget, and that's the presence of other Europeans that came to the island as smugglers and corsairs and as pirates. And again, you kind of divide it into a timeline. Let's first look at the difference between the corsairs, the pirates, and then the smugglers. We all know what they are. They kind of, illegally trade things. So Puerto Rico is attacked by pirates and corsairs for its location and treasures, including and most of all crops. We tend to think about pirates and corsairs, coming to the Americas for treasures, for gold and jewels and pearls, and that may have been the case sometimes. But the first attacks of the corsairs and pirates were to San Juan, trying to take over the city, and a couple of them succeeded, but were repelled. I think the most important or most famous attack was an attack by Sir Francis Drake. He was a corsair. A corsair is paid or was paid by, there it is. A corsair was paid. They had a patent, a license from their queen or king to steal from other vessels, other ships for the government. So the corsair would intercept buccaneer, is that how you call it? I don't know, a ship, and part of what they got went to the country, to the crown, to the king and queen, and part of it was for them. And a lot of people in a lot of people became rich doing that. The pirate would steal for themselves. They didn't work for their crown, they just worked for themselves. Los piratas, en cambio, incurrían en los saqueos en cualquier momento y sin contar con autorización. They were just the wolves of the sea, and they stole for them. So at the beginning, as I was telling you, the corsairs and pirates would try to take over the city of San Juan. The development of San Juan was very slow. As I told you, the interest in the island shifted. There were not a lot of riches in Puerto Rico, like in Mexico, for example, and some Central and South American countries. So because of its location as well, it became like a militarized place and a commerce point. So at the beginning, that was the interest for corsairs and pirates. They tried to took the city, and Sir Francis Drake, I think he worked for the British Crown. He attacked Puerto Rico in 1595, and what he wanted was to get to La Fortaleza, which is today the house of the governor, and take the treasures accumulated there. When they made a mistake, they lit a Spanish ship, and that fire alerted, the Spanish. It alerted the Spanish soldiers, and a lot of his men died. I think that he attacked with like it was like 3,000 men. I think I'll tell you a little bit more later. But that was one interest of the pirates and corsairs in the island. So Spaniards begin to fortify San Juan, and they built El Castillo San Felipe del Morro, and the whole area is kind of fortified. It has walls, and they developed a system of 7 doors. So when the 7 doors were closed, the city became impenetrable. That took time. That took a long time to develop. So the island San Juan, particularly, was vulnerable for a long time. Now, there's another draw, another thing the pirates and corsairs are interested in a little bit later. The money that came to Puerto Rico to develop all these projects came from Mexico. Coins that came from Mexico, that was called el situado. So imagine these pirates and corsairs knew this money was coming from Mexico to Puerto Rico and would attack and intercept those vessels. Now, that period was very difficult because of natural disasters, storms and hurricanes like that, and pirates attacks. So sometimes Puerto Rico would not receive that money for as long as 7 and 8 years. Again, we're thinking 7, 8 years, that's a long time. But back then, it was probably, not as long as it is in our minds by today's standards. So still, the soldiers, the Spanish soldiers working in the capital, sometimes depended on people to feed them, and sometimes they did not even have shoes to wear because there was no money. It would take a long time for the government, the Spanish government in Puerto Rico to get money. So what happens is there's like 2 Puerto Ricos now. There's San Juan, which is militarized, and El Morro becomes a jail also. And then there's the rest of the island. So the rest of the island is kind of abandoned. So they start, they depend on cows and ganado, livestock, especially hide and leather. And something that was super interesting to me, I did not know this, but ginger was very sought after at that time, very valued. Ginger was very valued. So, and the rest of the island, there's San Juan, and there's the rest of the island. Now, what do they do with their things? There's only one place they can sell or trade or send their things from, San Juan. And they could only make commerce from San Juan to Sevilla or Cadiz in Spain.
Both in Spain.
Both in Spain. What are they gonna do? They can't do anything with that. So they start smuggling. They start smuggling from, especially from the southwest of the island. Again, a good location. And people from French, but this time there's French colonies, there are Dutch colonies, and there are British colonies. So from this part of the island, they start, selling and trading and smuggling. What do you think the pirates and corsairs do from these islands? Oh my gosh! At this point, England dubbed the island as a nest of pirates. Un nido de piratas, porque it was, especially the hide and the ginger was very sought after, very, very valuable at that time. So when we think about pirates, stealing gold and jewels and things like that, well, at that time, it was not that was valuable, but it was crops and and hide, and they exchanged what they wanted to do with that. Remember that at that time, trueque, exchanging things, was mostly the way of doing things. So they would trade for slaves, and they would trade for things that from Europe that they had no access. And the other, why is that important as well? Because that's another influence we don't talk about. We talk about Tainos. We talk about the African influence. We talk about the European influence, but we don't, the Spanish mostly, but we don't even think about these other ways of thinking, of doing things that these pirates and these corsairs and these smugglers brought to the island. Those exchanges of ideas and ways of doing things are also part of our development and our culture as well. So I hope you find this interesting. There's so much we can talk about, and I'm sorry that we cannot have questions and an exchange, but we had a very famous corsair. He was a mulatto. Mulatto is a mixed person, and he became at one point the most powerful person in Puerto Rico at the beginning of the 18th century. His name was Miguel Enriquez, and he became rich being a corsair. Who made him a corsair? Spain, the Spanish crown, because when the smuggling was out of control, they tried to do things to control it. One of the things was they banned the agriculture of ginger. It didn't work. People kept growing it and smuggling it and exchanging it. That was one thing they do. And another thing they did to try to control the smuggling and the pirates was they gave patents. They made a lot of people, or some people, corsairs. So the corsair would intercept the smuggling vessels or the pirate vessels, and then they would share with the crown the profit or whatever they caught. So what happened to Enriquez was very sad because he was mixed, because he was a mulatto. They thought, meaning the society at that point, they said we cannot have a mixed person being so powerful. So he was accused of being a smuggler, and his corsair patent was taken away, and he all his the riches that he had accumulated were taken away, and he ended up his days in a asylum, like a monastery, exactly. So and then we had that was our famous Puerto Rican corsair, our famous pirate, whose name was let me see, Roberto Cofresi. I mean, his name was more complicated than that, and I think his father was from Italy and the mother was from Cabo Rojo. That's where he was born, in the southwest part of the island. And he's our most famous pirate. Why? People protected him. People in Puerto Rico, that part of the island, protected him because he shared his his wealth. He shared with the people in need, with his family, with his neighbors. So they protected him. But his vessel was La Ana. I'm going to look here because I don't want to get my dates mixed up. Here, Cofresi was born in Cabo Rojo, 1791, and he would attack vessels that did not have, of course, the Spanish flag. So he would attack British and French and Dutch vessels, and those countries, those crowns, began to complain to to Spain and say, "Listen, this guy is a menace." So the Spanish crown had an eye on him. And then one day, he was known as a Robin Hood Boricua, the Puerto Rican Robin Hood. So after those claims from other, they start, they start chasing him. But one time he attacked 8 vessels, he had a big fleet with him, of course. So they attacked eight vessels, and one of them was the Grampus, was an American ship, and he damaged that ship. So from now on, not only the Spanish crown was after him, but now the Americans are after him too. So he was captured. I think it was in 1825. He was captured, and he was taken to El Morro in San Juan with 11 of his men, and he was tried and found guilty, and he was executed in El Morro. But there's still, people believe that there's some of his treasures hidden in caverns and caves in the area of Sabana Seca in Puerto Rico. And there are restaurants named after him, and there are statues of him, like the one you see. There's songs about him, there's poems about him, there's tons of books written about him. Very interesting character. So if you want to research more, it would be cool. He's a very cool character, Roberto Cofresi, and there's a lot written about him. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna read from Stories from Puerto Rico, a little bit about Cofresi's story, and then we're going to finish with a very short YouTube movie that has scenes from Puerto Rico. There's no talking. There's scenes from Puerto Rico. So after I read, we're going to play the video. And thank you so much, Jorimar and Monica, for inviting us. I'm sorry, Mama, I didn't let him talk, but the teacher takes over. The teacher takes over. So
the elementary teacher takes over, because in high school we have dialogue.
Exactly.
In elementary is do this, do that.
No,
do this.
not anymore, not anymore. But I just get excited about the possibility of young people, listening to this and getting interested in researching a little bit more. So I'm going to read before this chapter. Cofresi and his men had attacked a vessel, and a lot of of people died. And one of the people who died was a lady, and her son, a little boy, was saved. And Cofresi took him that night, took him home, and this is what happened after that. One night, around 11, a man knocked at the door of a huge rustic house of the outskirts of the town of Yauco in southwest Puerto Rico. Despite the fake beard he was wearing as a disguise, he was obviously a young man. The person living in the house took a long time to answer, but he finally did. By the way he dressed, one could tell he was a priest. With whom do I have the pleasure? I am a son of the sea, opposed to the laws of man. Excuse me, but I do not understand. I am what they call a pirate. Cofresi, you are Cofresi. I see my name is no mystery to you. I just returned from Ponce, where you are the talk of the town. They speak of some sailors you left on an inlet who were rescued by a U.S. warship that trailed you so unsuccessfully some days ago. But they say they will continue searching high and low until they find you. I imagine so, but they still haven't caught me, eh? One day they will, my son, responded the priest sadly. But to what I do owe the honor of your visit. I am delivering these items of jewelry and this money to you. They are for the care of a child that I left with a family I know. His parents died when we captured the boat that everyone is talking about. Father, will you watch over the child for me? My duty is to care for the needy, and you yourself should repent. You should turn your life around. It's too late, Father. And without letting the conversation continue, the pirate bid farewell and stole into the night. Father Jose Antonio was left to reflect, and he understood that the notorious young man had some good in his heart after all. 2 days later, the Ana emerged from its hiding place among the islets and set out to sea again. After sailing for some time, a sail was spotted. Getting a closer look, Cofresi exclaimed, "The Anguila!" Cofresi knew the boat. It was familiar to his, but bigger and better equipped. It belonged to an acquaintance of his, Juan Pieretti. At one time, Cofresi had tried to buy the boat from Pieretti, but Pieretti would not sell it to him. Cofresi vowed to take it from him by force, and here was the opportunity. The Anguila fled toward open sea with the Ana trailing behind it, but then the Anguila began to slow down. Cofresi was surprised at the apparent calm of the Anguila's crew. They appeared unarmed, and Pietri was among them. Cofresi shouted, "Here I am, Juan Bautista, ready to take your boat." Then to his own men, "Get ready to board." At that moment, the deck of the Anguila filled with armed men who opened fire. At the same time, a gun port opened up to reveal a cannon which at point-blank range blasted a hole in the Ana's hull at water level. The Anguila had set a trap. It was fully armed. The pirates responded with their own gunfire and their own cannon, but they were no match for the quantity of men they were up against. The crew of the Anguila included men trained in war tactics, including some from Grampus, carefully selected for the sole purpose of hunting down Cofresi. The ones handling the cannon were professional artillerymen, and they hurled one cannonball after another toward the Ana's waterline. Cofresi soon found he hadn't a chance of winning his battle, and he attempted to flee, but the Ana, severely damaged in the attack, was sinking. Nevertheless, it was able to get closer to shore, where the pirates jumped into the water to escape. Some were captured, but Cofresi and Ricardo, camouflaged in the branches of the aquatic plants, swam to shore and rested a while in the forest. After finding food in the store, they parted. Ricardo, who was less known, hoped to find horses for the two of them. However, before Ricardo could return, Cofresi was captured by one of the many troops that were pursuing him. He was wounded, and he resisted arrest, and he was easily subdued. After his wounds healed a bit, Cofresi was transferred to San Juan by a 25-man military escort. Ricardo tried valiantly to rescue his friend, but he paid with his life when a soldier's bullet pierced his heart. The prisoners arrived in San Juan separately. Cofresi and 10 of his comrades were sentenced to death. Father Jose Antonio arrived in San Juan to accompany the pirates in their final moments, and he was with them as they walked toward the place where they would be executed. Shortly before arriving there, they walked along a road with a view of the sea. The priest told Cofresi, "Do you see that vessel? The child whose life you saved is aboard that vessel. 2 days ago, I turned him over to one of his relatives who came to claim him." Cofresi admired the sea for the last time. In the distance, he saw how the boat sliced gently through the waves. Roberto Cofresi, along with 10 of his mates, was executed by firing squad on March 27, 1825. And that's the last of our most known pirate, Cofresi. Thank you again. Gracias, mis amigos. Espero verlos pronto.